Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 171 based on novel. So let's start. Teacher Xiao Ya is indeed in the base. Hui Yuhao's eyes brightened, and he turned to Bei Bei. Bei Bei already looked pretty agitated right now. He finally knew where she was and had an opportunity to save her. Suddenly, Bei Bei was overwhelmed, and subconsciously clenched his fists. Yang Xiaosha nodded and said, "I'll let you retain your soul power, seeing that you are so cooperative." As he spoke, he retracted the whirlpool above Nangong Wan and slapped his forehead with his right hand, knocking Nangong Wan unconscious once again. The entire room descended into momentary silence. They had obtained valuable information after capturing Nangong Wan. Not only did they find out where Tang Ya and Ma Xiaodao were, but they also understood more about the internal structure of the Holy Ghost Church. This was very helpful to Shrek Academy to deal with the Holy Ghost Church in the future. Hui Yuhao looked at Yang Xiaosha and asked, "Dean Yang, since we have accurate information, can we planning how we're going to carry out our operation?" Yang Xiaosha was amused as he looked at him and said, "Didn't we agree that you'd command the operation? Of course you'll come up with the plan. What ideas do you have?" Hui Yuhao couldn't be bothered with being modest right now and immediately replied, "If we want to save Teacher Xiao Ya, we can only bait her out. The Sun Moon Empire's setup is too strong. 5 soul formations are enough to kill any expert. We need to bait Teacher Xiao Ya out. Otherwise, there's no other way." Yang Xiaosha squinted and said, "How do we do that then?" "Unless it's a full-scale battle, the Holy Ghost Church's sect leader might not appear. Tang Ya will naturally not appear then." Hui Yuhao furrowed his brow and said, "Yes, that's why it's difficult. If we fight all out, the Heavenly Soul Empire will suffer heavy losses. Even if the Sun Moon Empire wouldn't have sufficient resources to last the entire fight, they'll still be very strong once they attack. They still have a lot of evil soul masters to help them. That's why I believe that the Heavenly Soul Empire wouldn't be willing to cooperate with us if that were the plan. If that's the case, we only have one other solution." "Oh." Elder Song, Yang Xiaosha, and Bei Bei focused their attention on Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao's eyes flashed with a cold light and he turned to Nangong Wan before saying, "Nothing ventured, nothing gained." "No?" Bei Bei shouted without any hesitation. His eyes were filled with horror. Although Hui Yuhao only said a few words, Bei Bei knew exactly what he wanted to do. "You can't do it. It's too dangerous," Elder Song commented. "You want to use him to enter the base? Have you even thought of what would happen if you were recognized? There are many powerful individuals in the Sun Moon Empire's base. The Holy Ghost Church's sect leader is even holding the fort. How can you sneak in so easily?" Hui Yuhao smiled and replied, "Elder Song, Dean Yang, eldest senior, don't worry. Since I came up with his idea, I'm naturally confident that it'll work. Although there's some risk, it's not as bad as all of you think. Elder Song, take a look." As he spoke, Hui Yuhao spun once. Suddenly, his aura changed greatly, and his body rapidly transformed. After he completed his turn, his look had completely changed. Didn't he look just like the Masquerade de l'Or? Even his aura was identical. It was sinister and cold. There were no discrepancies at all. Earlier, Elder Song and Hui Yuhao had faced the two evil titled Dolor together. Right now, she was astonished when she saw the changes that happened to Hui Yuhao. Elder Song was a rank 97 titled Dolor. However, she couldn't tell that anything wrong with Hui Yuhao just by using her naked eyes. Elder Song increased her spiritual power and swept it across Hui Yuhao's body. Hui Yuhao shuddered slightly, but a wave of spiritual power was suddenly deflected back. It even carried a sinister aura. Just like before, there wasn't any difference from the Masquerade de l'Or. Hui Yuhao lifted his hands, and pitch-black maggots started to surface in mid-air. Every maggot carried strong spiritual undulations. They reached toward Elder Song like a huge web. However, Elder Song felt something wrong when she came into contact with this huge web. Earlier, the soul skill that the masquerade dolor had unleashed caused her entire person, including her spirit, to slow slightly. However, Hui Yuhao's soul skill only left her slightly weaker. There was a difference when it came to strength, but the sinister aura remained. Elder Song said, "Your soul skill seems to be off, but it appears very similar on the surface." Hui Yuhao smiled and said, "It definitely won't be the same. However, with my imitation and Nangong Wan's help, there shouldn't be too many problems." Nangong Wan holds an even higher position than the masquerade dolor. I'll ask him about some of the masquerade dolor's habits later. After we return, I won't be easy to recognize with Nangong Wan leading the way. Even the sect leader can't tell who I am without laying his hands on me. Bei Bei shook his head and said, "No, it's too dangerous. I can't implicate you to save Xiao Ya. Little Junior, I know that you want to save her too. If not for the fact that I'm helpless, I would have volunteered to sneak in instead. However, you're different. You're the future hope of the Tang sect and Shrek Academy. I can't make you take this risk. If something happens to you, how could I account to the Academy and the rest of our teammates?" Hui Yuhao said, "Eldest senior, we have no other way right now. We can only do this so that we can achieve our aim in the shortest time possible. Furthermore, who says that I'm going alone? All of you will follow me. I can't fight by myself." "What?" Bei Bei, Elder Song, and Yang Xiaozhou were stunned as they looked at Hui Yuhao. Is he not going alone? However, there were so many of them and none of them had imitation like Hui Yuhao. How could they sneak in too? Hui Yuhao smiled mysteriously and said, "Let's make a simple plan and take advantage of the time that we have to sneak into the Sun Moon Empire's base first. After that, we can discuss our detailed plan." He lowered his voice and explained the plan once. After hearing his plan, Bei Bei looked enlightened, whereas Elder Song and Yang Xiaozhou were getting increasingly shocked. 1 hour later. The night sky was still dark, but the Sun Moon Empire's base wasn't peaceful. The sect leader of the Holy Ghost Church was standing in the center of the commander's tent of the Sun Moon Empire's crusading army. The marshal of this army was a very notable general in the Sun Moon Empire. Juzi returned to the empire and had other plans. The army was now commanded by this marshal. Although he was already more than 70 years old, he was still a soul dolor. He was called Lin Hai. Although his cultivation wasn't great, his influence in the Sun Moon Empire was still great, as he hailed from a family of military men, and he was also a duke. Initially, when Juzi had entered the army, he had helped her a lot. He was also of the same lineage as Xu Tianran. Otherwise, Xu Tianran wouldn't have passed him the reins of the 3 armies. Lin Hai had another advantage that enabled him to become marshal of the 3 armies. It was his abilities. Weak abilities weren't always necessarily a bad thing. Just because he wasn't a titled dolor, he couldn't command the stronger Class 9 Soul Engineer Legion, even though his influence in the army was very great. This was why he could only command the ordinary soldiers. While the Legion commanders of the Soul Engineer Legions had to listen to his instructions, they still acted with great autonomy. Juzi could truly ensure strict obedience to her instructions and command the entire army. It wasn't because of her abilities, but because of her mysterious and unpredictable strategies that left the 3 armies shocked. Right now, Juzi was being called the female god of war in the Sun Moon Empire. Lin Hai didn't possess the same unpredictability as Juzi, but he was more sturdy as a person. What was needed now was balance. He was naturally the most suitable person to command the 3 armies. However, Lin Hai wasn't in a good mood today. Yesterday, their ground-based surveillance soul tools had discovered enemies sneaking about in the sky. Then, they fired a linked attack, but couldn't lock onto the enemies because they were too far away. This was why he didn't know what had happened. However, he gave the order to increase their surveillance of the sky after that incident. Indeed, the enemies appeared again today. Just as Lin Hai was about to attack the sky with even greater intensity, the sect leader of the Holy Ghost Church wanted to get people to capture their enemies alive. After all, enemies that could conceal themselves were very difficult to take precautions against. It was better for them to capture them and find out where their abilities came from. The sect leader of the Holy Ghost Church was also the imperial tutor. At the same time, he had the authority to supervise Lin Hai. Lin Hai naturally couldn't stop him, given that he had made such a proposition. As a result, the Heavenly Centipede Dolor and Masquerade Dolor were deployed. To Zhongli Wu, 2 evil titled Dolor were enough to capture their enemies. However, who could guess that Nangong Wan and the Masquerade Dolor would disappear? Even the ground-based surveillance soul tools only discovered strong soul power undulations before the 2 of them vanished. They were 2 evil titled Dolor. The Holy Ghost Church had been around for so many years, but there weren't many evil titled Dolor. Zhongli Wu held Nangong Wan in high regard. Although he wasn't young anymore, his heavenly centipede could still improve. If he was lucky enough, he might still become a transcendent Dolor. Now that both of them were missing, how could Zhongli Wu not be furious? Still no news? Are your people dumb? Zhongli Wu said coldly to Lin Hai. Although Zhongli Wu wouldn't admit it, he still admired Zhu Zi a lot. When the Star Luo Empire snatched the Mingdo mountain range back, Zhongli Wu felt that it was unbelievable. His own mother couldn't stop the Star Luo Empire. He was in great disbelief. After that, Yi Shishui mentioned that someone had used Di Qian's strength to keep her at bay. It was then Zhongli Wu finally understood. Although the Star Luo Empire had regained control of the Mingdo mountain range and caused trouble at the Sun Moon Empire's borders, the Heavenly Soul Empire had already lost 2/3 of their land. Even their capital had been taken. All these were the merit of Zhu Zi. This was why Zhongli Wu would have been much more polite if Zhu Zi were here. However, he believed that Lin Hai was only a puppet. All the surveillance soul tools are operating at their highest efficiency. Also, we've sent out more than 10 soul engineer teams to search the sky. Indeed, we haven't found anything. Lin Hai also knew that he couldn't afford to offend Zhongli Wu. He could only explain the situation once again. Zhongli Wu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Don't tell me they have many skilled individuals over there hiding in the sky? Impossible, the surveillance soul tools here have been in use all this while. There's even monitoring of the sky using ground-based telescopes. Unless they can all conceal themselves, how can they disappear in the sky? As it's nighttime, the ground-based telescopes are much less effective. However, even so, any major movements would still be discovered. Furthermore, Nangong Wan and Masquerade are both titled Dolor. Even if the enemies are strong, they should be able to handle them for some time. At least they should be able to send distress signals. I don't understand how they could go missing. Just as Zhongli Wu was puzzled, frantic footstep noises were heard. Repa. Lin Hai straightened his face. Tell me, what have you found? Yes, Marshal. The Heavenly Centipede Dolor and Masquerade Dolor are back. After hearing his words, Lin Hai heaved a sigh of relief. The 2 of them are finally back. Now, I wonder how this guy will continue to put me in a spot. Zhongli Wu also appeared much more composed, and said, tell them that I'm here. Ask them to come see me. Noted. The soldier relaying the message acknowledged his order and quickly rushed off. Not long afterward, the curtains to the commander's tent opened, and 2 people walked in. Nangong Wan was walking slightly in front. He quickly arrived in front of Zhongli Wu and bowed before saying, Sect leader. The Masquerade Dolor followed closely behind him and did the same. Zhongli Wu asked, why have both of you disappeared for so long? What happened? Nangong Wan looked very grim. That fellow was very cunning. After we discovered him, we hid in the clouds and got closer to him. However, he discovered us before we got close to him. He's a spiritual type titled Dolor, but his abilities are ordinary. However, he was very quick, and his senses were also very acute. After discovering us, he immediately turned around and fled. He had someone to help him. When we chased him to the Heavenly Soul Empire's base, we were afraid of falling into their trap, so we stopped and turned back. Zhongli Wu didn't suspect Nangong Wan. It was normal. How easy was it to harm 2 titled Dolor? Zhongli Wu nodded and asked, "What other discoveries have you made?" Nangong Wan replied, "Yes, sect leader. We seem to have seen some people from Shrek Academy. Whoever helped that title Doluo seemed to have come from Shrek Academy. We saw one of their signals. Because of that, we didn't venture further, as we were afraid of falling into their trap." Shrek Academy? Zhongli Wu was slightly moved when he heard these words. All this while, the Holy Ghost Church had felt that their greatest enemy wasn't the body sect, but Shrek Academy. Shrek Academy had been around for thousands of years. Furthermore, they had students from all around the world. In the three empires of the original Doluo continent, many military figures hailed from Shrek Academy. Once Shrek Academy announced their wish to accept students, the response would be overwhelming. This was why the Sun Moon Empire had failed when they started the First War. Shrek Academy's intervention caused everything to become futile. It had been some time since this war had started. Although Shrek Academy hadn't openly joined in the war, the death god Doluo claimed that someone from Shrek Academy had intervened during the Mingdo mountain range incident. Now there were people from Shrek Academy here too. Nangong Wan and the masquerade Doluo stood at one side and silently waited as Zhongli Wu pondered. "Did you clearly see what martial souls those from Shrek Academy possessed?" Zhongli Wu asked. Nangong Wan replied, "I only saw one. It was from a transcendent Doluo. His martial soul was a golden phoenix. His abilities were very great. Even if I challenged him to a duel, I wouldn't be confident of beating him." Golden Phoenix? Transcendent Doluo? Yang Xiaoxia? A cold look surfaced on Zhongli Wu's face. Yang Xiaoxia, the radiant Phoenix Doluo. He's actually personally here. It seems like Shrek Academy is about to intervene. As he spoke until here, Zhongli Wu's expression turned grimmer and grimmer. Although Shrek Academy no longer had an ultimate Doluo, the Holy Ghost Church had never once let down their guard against them. Even though the Holy Ghost Church was at its peak now, and even had two ultimate Doluo, they didn't have the idea of directly attacking Shrek Academy. This was especially since Shrek Academy had forced the Great Star Do Forest to retreat not long ago, which further enhanced the Academy's reputation as the top academy on the continent. Although the Holy Ghost Church wasn't aware of what had truly happened, the Great Star Do Forest was still the #1 soul beast forest in the world. Out of the 10 great savage beasts, 5 were in the Great Star Do Forest. This even included Di Qian. Even so, none of them could take down Shrek City. This showed how strong Shrek City was. The Holy Ghost Church was going to deal with Shrek Academy sooner or later. However, they had no intention of using their abilities to deal with them directly. They wanted to borrow the Sun Moon Empire's strength. No matter how strong Shrek Academy was, it was still a Soul Master Academy. Their values would be deeply rooted. Although the Academy had been investing greatly in soul tools in recent years, Zhongli Wu still felt that it was insufficient. Could they possibly catch up so quickly? No matter how impenetrable Shrek City was, they wouldn't be able to survive if Zhongli Wu led Soul Engineer legions to attack them and fired Class 9 stationary soul cannons at them. However, Zhongli Wu was a little depressed that Yi Shishui and Long Xiaoyao had said that they couldn't attack Shrek Academy directly no matter what. Without the support of the two of them, Zhongli Wu didn't dare to make any plans to attack Shrek Academy. Since they are here, we'll let them come at us. Marshal Lin Hai. Zhongli Wu turned to Lin Hai. Lin Hai immediately stood up and respectfully said, "Imperial Tutor, please give me your orders." Zhongli Wu said, "Get your men to be more cautious and step up surveillance. Once you discover something, inform me quickly. I want to see what Yang Xiaoxia is up to." "Yes." Lin Hai respectfully acknowledged his words. Zhongli Wu turned to Nangong Wan and said, "Nangong, Masquerade, go and rest. Both of you have done well this time by bringing back important news. However, don't chase our enemies recklessly in the future. Shrek Academy is very sly. Once you fall into their trap, you'll be in big trouble. Both of you are important to the church. I hope nothing happens to you. Thank you for your concern." Nangong Wan and the Masquerade Doluo bowed at the same time. Zheng Liwu waved them off and said, "All right, both of you are dismissed." "Yes." Nangong Wan and the masquerade Dolor turned around and left. Just as they reached the opening of the tent, Zheng Liwu suddenly called, "Wait a minute." Nangong Wan and the masquerade Dolor both stopped. The masquerade Dolor stiffened up, but it was only slightly. It wasn't obvious. Zheng Liwu said, "Masquerade, you've already stagnated for some time. Stop thinking about playing with women. Work harder. Although your martial soul isn't very strong, it's very special. If you can become a transcendent Dolor in the future, it will be very helpful to the church. Sect leader, you also know that it's difficult to cultivate my demonic maggot. It's not that I'm not working hard. It's just that my demonic maggot hasn't been able to gain anything from devouring the spirits of ordinary humans after I became a titled Dolor. I can only achieve something if I devour the spirit of a titled Dolor. Why don't you give me some resources when the war continues?" The masquerade Dolor laughed. Zheng Liwu furrowed his brow and said, "Enough with that. The church still has uses for the spirits of titled Dolor. Even if your demonic maggot devours their spirits, it's not just one or two that will help you improve. It's such a waste. Although we are evil soul masters, stop trying to use shortcuts to achieve your goal. Work hard on your cultivation. You can improve in that way too. Look at Nangong. He's already ranked 93 now. When he reaches rank 94, the church will turn resources toward him and quickly help him become a transcendent Dolor. If you stay in your current state, you can only remain as one of the lousier elders we have." "Yes, I'll work harder," the masquerade Dolor said a little awkwardly. "You can go." Zheng Liwu gestured again. The masquerade Dolor felt as if he had been given a big let-off and walked out with Nangong Wan. After exiting the commander's tent, Nangong Wan and the masquerade Dolor looked at each other. The originally sinister look in the masquerade Dolor's eyes became clearer, and he nodded gently. Nangong Wan led him toward the left. Their tents were not far in that direction. The real masquerade Dolor had died at Elder Song's hands. Without a doubt, the masquerade Dolor now was an imitation. Huo Yuhao was imitating him. When Zheng Liwu had called out to him earlier, Huo Yuhao had tensed up. He clearly knew that if he was exposed in such a poor area of the base, he would find it extremely difficult to escape from the sect leader of the Holy Ghost Church even if he had the protection of Di Qian's reverse scale. Fortunately, he had found out some details on the masquerade Dolor from Nangong Wan before he came here. This was why he managed to bluff his way through. Nangong Wan sent the masquerade Dolor to his tent before speaking through his soul power. "When are you going to remove my restrictions?" Huo Yuhao said, "When we finish this mission, we'll remove the restrictions. Shrek Academy isn't the Holy Ghost Church. We'll keep our promises. As long as you cooperate with us, we won't hurt you. We'll even help you keep up the pretense. When you finish this mission, you'll be free and continue to be an elder of the Holy Ghost Church. Of course, whatever you want to do in the future, it'll be your business. However, if you continue to harm others, you'll land in our hands again." Nangong Wan laughed bitterly as he nodded. He pointed to Huo Yuhao's tent before turning and leaving. He didn't fully trust Huo Yuhao. However, not believing Huo Yuhao didn't mean that he didn't believe Shrek Academy. Shrek Academy's reputation on the continent was very notable. Earlier, Yang Xiaosha and Elder Song had guaranteed that he would be given his freedom if he helped them to complete this mission. Right now, the restrictions in Nangong Wan's body were placed by Huo Yuhao using necromancy after Yang Xiaosha sucked away his soul power. In fact, the restrictions weren't lethal, but they would be very painful if they were triggered. After all, Huo Yuhao's cultivation wasn't too far off from his. These restrictions would only last for 3 days too. Of course, Nangong Wan didn't know all this. He only knew that his spiritual seat would be in excruciating pain if he tried to trigger the restrictions. Huo Yuhao bent over and entered his tent. The evil soul masters were treated very well in his camp. This tent was very large. However, Huo Yuhao's expression immediately changed when stepped in. there was a strong fragrance in the masquerade dolor's tent. This fragrance carried the smell of aphrodisiac. Not only that, but there was also a sinister aura that accompanied it. "Sir, you're back." A soft-spoken voice was heard. Two simply dressed young girls received him immediately. Their faces were slightly red, and their breathing carried the aura of aphrodisiacs. Evidently, they were influenced by those drugs. These two young girls were very pretty, but the look in their eyes was hollow. It was as if they had lost their souls. Hu Yuhao said, "Stay away from me. Put your clothes on. I don't need your services today." "What?" The two girls were stunned, but they didn't dare to say anything, and immediately dressed up before leaving when they felt the killing intent coming from Hu Yuhao. When they left, the tent immediately smelled more refreshing. Hu Yuhao pulled the curtains open to get rid of the smell. Although he only had a brief interaction with both girls earlier, he could still feel that the aphrodisiacs came from their bodies. This meant that their bodies had been modified. The way that the Holy Ghost Church harmed people could really make one bristle with anger. Hu Yuhao didn't use his spiritual detection to observe his surroundings. He was in a very important area of the base. Everyone from the Holy Ghost Church stayed within this core region. Defense was undoubtedly very tight in such a region. If there was a spiritual barrier or a powerful individual around, he would immediately be detected. This was why Hu Yuhao only looked out from his windows after pulling his curtains open and sensed his surroundings. When fresher air circulated into his tent, he immediately shut the windows. The decoration inside this tent was quite classy. There was a huge carpet made out of animal skin that was laid on the ground, and a huge bed in the center of the tent. At the front, there was a table, a sofa, and daily tools. After sending the two young girls out, Hu Yuhao wasn't afraid of the Holy Ghost Church suspecting anything. Earlier, Zhongli Wu had told him to stop being so obsessed with sex. He was only listening to orders. After closing the curtains, the entire tent became much quieter. It was also much dimmer. There were only a few dim soul lamps that were still on. Evil soul masters didn't enjoy bright environments. Such dimness gave off a very sinister feel. Hu Yuhao didn't get onto the bed. To him, the masquerade dolor must have had been on it with many young girls. It was too dirty. He pulled out a chair and sat cross-legged on it. After this, he carefully unleashed his spiritual power. His spiritual detection was limited to his tent, but every single nook and cranny was within his detection. He wanted to make sure that this place was fine before he proceeded with the next step of his operation. A few minutes later, he opened his eyes once again and nodded. This is more like where an evil titled dolor should stay. There aren't any surveillance precautions taken in this tent, and there are also no surveillance soul tools that cover it. This was great news. Hu Yuhao unleashed his soul power once again. This time, he formed a spiritual barrier and isolated the inside of the tent from the rest of the outside world. At this moment, he would immediately discover it if someone tried to use their spiritual power in this tent. It was just like when he was discovered. After completing this setup, Hu Yuhao started to mutter incantations. He was very soft. Unless one were in this room, it would be impossible to hear him. The masquerade dolor was also partly adept at spiritual power. This was why it was easier for Hu Yuhao to keep up his false appearance if he imitated him. The evil soul master aura of the masquerade dolor could be imitated, while his spiritual power wasn't weaker than the masquerade dolor's was. As he started chanting, the space in front of him started to distort. Halos flashed, and a pitch-black door slowly opened in front of him. Hu Yuhao verified that no one had breached his spiritual barrier before he took a step into that door. He came into another dimension, his spectral demiplane. On a bald mountain, Elder Song, Yang Xiaosha, and everyone from the Tang sect was waiting for him. Apart from them, there was also the Ice Bear King. Everyone from the Tang sect had entered Hu Yuhao's spectral demiplane. They didn't have too much of a reaction when they first entered, but Yang Xiaosha and Elder Song were both astonished. They hadn't expected Hu Yuhao to be capable of this. It was because they were strong that they understood what a demiplane meant. Elder Song and Yang Xiaoxia immediately realized where the spectral army came from when they were fighting the Great Star Do Forest when they saw the boundless sea of specters. However, neither of them asked any questions about it. In Hui Yuhao's plan, there was no way he could rescue Tang Yue alone. Tang Yue's current abilities were unknown. However, they knew she was at least an evil soul sage. Hui Yuhao couldn't harm her either. It was impossible to capture her quickly. Furthermore, any movement in this base would be immediately discovered. This was why Hui Yuhao had no choice but to expose his spectral demoplane to them, and let everyone rest inside it. When he entered it, it meant that everyone had assembled. Right now, the first step of the plan had been completed. How is it, Yuhao? Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao nodded lightly and recounted everything that had happened to them. Elder Song nodded and said, "All right, take care then. You don't have to worry about us. We'll be waiting for you. When you think the time is right, we'll begin the mission." Yes. Hui Yuhao had entered to say hi to everyone, and tell them that he had successfully snuck into the Sun Moon Empire's base. Yang Xiaoxia furrowed his brow and said, "Yuhao, you should expedite your plan. The longer you stay there, the more you run the risk of being exposed." Yes. Hui Yuhao acknowledged once again. Elder Song laughed, "Xiaoxia, I think you've yet to acclimate to the environment here. This video will end here.